Welcome to another episode for my Activating Abundance series. And this week I have a fun surprise. Well, actually, two fun surprises. And this is going to be short. It's going to be maybe one of my shorter, but I always say that and then I gab more. But we have a football game to go to. We have a Friday night game, which normally games are on Saturday in college. So we go to all the college football games that are our local college, which is University of Virginia. And they had a horrible display last week against North Carolina. I was raised as a Redskins fan, which is now the Washington football team. So I love football. And I never had sons. I had girls. And so they played football, but it was soccer. It was football in another country is what it was, their version of football. But anyways, I've always loved football. I remember our first color TV. My mom saying, "Oh my gosh, look at how green the grass is," and I'm like, "Can we change the channel?" So my mom was a big football fan. She embedded the love of football. I know all the rules. I'm very good at all the football rules. In fact, I thought it would be fun for my husband and I to have some sort of a group or like some kind of course where we during the football season teach women what the football rules are, and then they could come in with their husbands and we could have like play fantasy football or something like that. So I try to get my husband. He would love that. He's so good at rules and he loves football. He likes college football more than professional football. And I have to say, honestly, I haven't even been watching professional football because the Washington football team is not great. They did have a good eke out win that we saw last week. So that was fun. But anyways, enough about football. This episode is not about football, but maybe I'll do an episode on the abundance of football or sports, loving sports as a woman. So the fun surprises are number one, I have relaunched my abundance quiz. You find out your abundance level and it gives you a persona. And that's basically the persona for that level. And you learn a little bit about where you are and where you might need to go next step to raise your abundance level. Or if you're at the top, then that's good to know too. And I was just looking at percentages. It's interesting. Well, I really shouldn't say because we've just relaunched it and the analytics are probably a lot on just us testing it, but I can share at some future date kind of like the breakdown and who is at what percentage. So the quiz, you can go and find the quiz I did an episode on it. So that might be a good reference point because I launched it a while back and then I took it down because I have a midlife fulfillment quiz. I love quizzes, by the way. They're fun and people learn a lot about themselves when they take quizzes. And so episode 105, if you go back, you can listen to the details about the different personas in the abundance quiz. And there's a link there. I'll also put a link in the show notes here for getting the quiz. And so it's basically notyouraverage-grandma.com/abundance quiz with all one word. And you can take it there. So that's number one fun surprise. And number two fun surprise is I just finished a course on abundance. I created a brand new course on abundance that was a bonus for my second half Spark School students. So they got it as an extra for being a part of the school. And it was a lot of work. I just finished it, 6 modules, and I am offering that to the quiz takers. You can only get it, well, as a student for free, or you can purchase it as a quiz taker for a huge discount. So like 75% off, but it's a limited time offer. So just FYI, if you take the quiz and you are interested in the course, then take a look at it before, I think it's like 48 hours or something you have. So I just wanted to share that. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the course and what is in the course. One of the big, I think, positives of the course is there's a lot of exercises. There's a lot of homework assignments. And I think some of them are really great. They really get you, they're thought provoking. They get you thinking. They really get you focused on what abundance is and how to start applying more abundance in your life and operating from that state. So of course, if I was going to do an abundance course, I have to follow the 6 abundance principles that are taught by Sarah von Bronach. And Sarah talks about the six, she calls them tenets or principles. They are gratitude, simplicity, order, harmony, beauty, and joy. So those are the six. And what she does in her book is she has an excerpt a day. I've talked about her book before. So if this is a rehash, then I'm sorry, but some people are maybe catching this for the first time and they don't know anything about this book. But her book is called Simple Abundance, and they're daily excerpts. And she is a gifted writer. It's so interesting. She's so well read. She references so many famous people and quotes, and it's just great. I love it. And so she covers each principle over a 2-month period. So as you can imagine, 365 excerpts. And so some of the excerpts have been so powerful for me, like, so they resonated at such a deep level. And I've had my highlighter going as I go through the book. I also my mechanical pencil. I'm a big mechanical pencil freak. So I've been making notes in the margin, and some stuff like marking it to be in a course, some marking it to be in my podcasts, and just so much good stuff in there. And there is also some overlap in the different themes. And, so something that might come up in, for instance, the 2 months that she does concentrates on beauty. There might be a topic or a theme, and it is also in one of the other principles. So there's some commonality across the principles, which is basically, the abundance mindset. But so what I did is I basically took each 2-month period, and I took the 5 biggest lessons that I learned and that I loved and that I thought were really profound and would help people. And I made them, so each module, which there's a module per principle, and each module has 5 lessons, and exercises to go with it. So I'm just going to touch on each of the principles and some of the basic stuff that I cover in the course. So one of the things, the first one is gratitude. And of course, you kind of know what gratitude is as it relates to abundance. It's just being grateful for what we have and tuning into that on a daily basis. So there's a couple of good exercises in there. But one of the things that I cover in that module is the emotional guidance scale. And that is and if you don't know about the emotional guidance scale, it's a very fascinating way of understanding where you are when it relates to feelings. Like, you might say, I'm in a bad mood, or I'm like really frustrated, or I'm feeling really peaceful. So there's all these emotions, right? And they're on a scale. And the scale, and you think of it like a tornado, right? So there's the top of it and there's the bottom of it, and the negative emotions are at the bottom and the positive emotions are at the top. And so it really helps you understand the different emotions and what tears down and what tears up, tier. You'll be surprised, like, where certain emotions fall on the scale. And it's the degree in which they make us feel worse or better. And there's a really valuable, I to me, examples are key. And so there's a really great video that I share where and that emotional guidance scale was created by Abraham Hicks. And so it comes from his teachings. And so Esther Hicks has a video where she kind of talks about the scale and uses a specific example of somebody moving up the scale and how to do that. And I loved it. I thought it was a very big part. So it's, you think of gratitude as, oh yeah, I'll write down what I'm grateful for, but it's kind of tuning in as well with where you are and how to shift yourself. And I love that. So and I talk about this in my program and my course, the second half Spark School, but so many of us, especially people at middle age and older, there's a lot of past. We've lived a lot of life, and there's a lot of past. And sometimes we spend a lot of time dwelling on the past, and it's hard for us to move forward. It's hard for us to get over some of the things that we think we did wrong, or we could have done better, or I should have taken a different path, or whatever it is. And we tend to always look for the bad instead of look for the good in that. And so there is a little, there's a really great exercise in how to shift that. So that's another good part in module 1, if I may say so myself. It's good, good, good. All right. And so let's see, order is the next principle. And so order, this is interesting. And I talked about order in the episode last week about how just up leveling my office space, just doing some kind of refreshing to my office space. And now I use it I go in there every single morning. I'm very excited about it. I turn my fountain on, I turn my Echo Dot on, and I listen. And even like Alexa, it's, we call it Echo. You can change the name if you didn't know on your device. But my husband likes Echo, so he wanted that Echo name, and he didn't want Alexa. So and the only reason he said it's because it's 2 syllables versus 3. So, anyways, I just think he thought Echo was more masculine, and he didn't want to talk to a girl. That's what I think. But anyways, we don't know. That's just my conjecture. So now my Echo Dot, I said, like play spa instrumental, because there's a station that is that. And so, but then I was like, would you like me to suggest another station? And I'm like, okay, let Echo pick a station for me. So I listened to my station that I love, that's peaceful in the background, listen to my fountain. It's just like a really great space. I love it. And I turn my heater on maybe if my feet are cold, which I did this morning. So order is about bringing order no matter where it is. And my office space, which is an example. Also organization in your life. So many people are like, oh, I like to be spontaneous. I don't want to have rigid structure. And you can, you can be spontaneous yet still work from a sense of order. And so I think in one of the excerpts that Sarah talks about is the example of like a hoarder, and how, if you think about hoarders, there's no order in their life. And of course, where they're emotionally not in a good place, trying to cling on to all these material things that don't mean anything, and they put a lot of meaning to them, and they can't let go of them. And so like a hoarder is the opposite example of having order in your life, but also order in not only the external of your life, but the internal. How do you get order internally? And one of the things I talk about in my program is, like, I ask the question, are you a winger or are you a planner? Because we talk about building a purpose plan, that being very intentional about having a plan based on purpose that excites you, that lights you up. That's why it's called the second half spark school. So in this case, like winger, a lot of people like to wing it. And that's good for some things. And you can be a winner, and you don't have to, a winger, not winner, not to be confused by winner. But you can be a winger and be spontaneous, but still have structure and order. And order brings abundance into your life. And just making your bed. I was watching a really great video by Mel Robbins, who just released a book. I don't think it's out yet, but she's doing pre-sales for it. And it's called The High Five Habit. And she did this little, like, her morning routine video. And it was so amazing. But she talked about how, like, she did the steps in the morning that you do. And one of the first steps is she makes her bed. And I think many of us who are in our 60s, 50s, 60s, 70s, we made our beds as children. We were like, it was demanded that we make our bed. We could not leave our room without making our bed. And a lot of people now, they don't make their beds. And so how, like, that just, and it made me think about why order is so important. Just making your bed. One of the things she says is it's the first thing that you do, that you feel a sense of accomplishment. You've accomplished something. But what's great about making a bed for me is when I walk into my room at the end of the night, and I, like, at the end of the day, and I go in there and I'm like, oh, who doesn't love, like, pulling the covers down and tucking into, a nice bed that's been made. So, but that's another example of just having order and how it brings more abundance. It fills you with this mental state of abundance. Harmony is number 3. So in that module, it talks really about having balance in your life. And one of the really good exercises is it talks about the difference between skills and gifts. And we confuse those two things. I did it in my life for a long time. And I kept thinking, my skills were my gifts, and that's not necessarily true. And so really understanding the differences and like really digging deep to see what those are is very, very eye-opening. It also talks about stepping into who you are, your authentic self, and how important that is, and using intuition. And a lot of people ignore their intuition. It's there for all of us, but some people are more in tune with it, and some people actually are more naturally inclined from a very, very young age. But somebody like me, who was kind of like completely blocked from it, and then let her logic, analytical side of her brain drive everything. And when anything came up intuitively, was just like, that is crazy. That doesn't make any sense. Forget it, you know? So it talks about that, how you bringing harmony, but you know, you need to listen to the internal signs. Talks about that, recognizing the road signs, you know, that what your intuition is telling you. That's one of the exercises, recognizing the road signs and going back in your past to see, okay, when were there road signs that you either ignored, or when were there road signs that you listened to? And it's just a really great exercise. So what else? And like every module has a set of 5 lessons and 5 exercise, with the exception of one. And I don't know why, because I was like, there's 30 exercises. I was telling my an integrator person who was putting the product together in our training portal, and I said, when we were saying like, what are we going to put on the page to, you know, that says what's inside the course. And I said, oh, there's 30 exercises. And I was like, oh, wait, I went back and I was looking, I was like, oh, there's only 29. So I need to add an extra one to make it a nice 30. But so there's, like I said, 5 lessons per module and 29 exercises. So the next one after harmony is beauty. And beauty is, I love beauty because it really means I forgot one. Okay, I need to go backwards, but I'll finish and I'll go back to the one I skipped. Beauty is, you know, I love beauty. It's about, and I like the way I titled the modules. It's like beauty, and then each lesson in the module is how I titled the lessons, not the module. But I like how I titled the lessons in that module, because it was like, in the blank, 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 in the blank, blank. So it's like beauty in the moment, beauty in the courage, beauty in the, you know, and so it's really about the aspect of beauty in these different areas. So of course, one of them is the beauty of the present moment. And so that's very, very important, because we are people, all of us, who our brains automatically go to the past or the future. And if you are somebody who really appreciates and sits with the present moment, and is grateful for that, you are a rare bird. You are a rare bird. It takes practice, because that, honestly, that's all we have, is the present moment. We spend so much time on the future, which may never come. And I say, not to be morbid, that it may never come. That's not what I mean. It's that the future that we think will happen won't come. So we, like, an example is worry. Okay, so we're so worried about this thing that is going to happen in a month, and we focus and dwell on that. Well, guess what? 9 times out of 10, it isn't going to happen. And if you keep focusing on it, it might just happen. So you want to get your thoughts somewhere else. So focus on the present moment and not on a future that isn't even here and hasn't arrived yet. It's not that you don't like have goals and dreams, definitely, but always be focused on the present moment and the actions that you can take in the present moment to get to the future you desire. But it also talks about the beauty of nature, the beauty of saying no and setting boundaries, the beauty of stepping into courage and stepping out of fear, because so many of us, I stayed in fear for a long time and didn't take the steps that I knew deep in my heart I want intuitively that I didn't listen to. And so finally got the courage, and how that's a beautiful thing. Okay, and then the last module is joy. And isn't it interesting? I think that my middle name is Joy, that I was named, my given name was Laura Joy. And so, of course, I don't go by Laura. My parents never called me Laura. They always call me Laurie, except my teachers at school, until I was brave enough in 5th grade to say, well, my name's really Lori. But all through 4th grade, all the way through, they called me Laura in school. So I go by Lori. And it creates some confusion sometimes, but don't ever call me Laura. And then Joy was my middle name for until I got married, and then I've kept my my maiden name as my middle name. So it's so funny too, because my college roommates, they kept their middle names. They didn't carry over their maiden names, but they're Catholic. So maybe there's a pattern. Maybe that's a Catholic thing. I don't know, because their middle names are I think given through the through the ceremony of baptism or something. I don't know. I don't know. I should ask them sometime why they did that. But I also thought that was interesting. So, and I also think it's funny because I say I dropped the joy when I got married. So, but that's not true because I'm a happily married woman. So, so Joy is my given middle name. And the joy module is talks about some things that really bring a state of joy to you. And one of the things that a lot of people don't really know how to tap into is the flow state, the state in which you kind of go away to another place. It's like sometimes most people have had this feeling when it's like you're conscious and you're going somewhere, but you're in such deep thought, you've kind of like transported to a different place. You've kind of like gone outside your body to another place. I mean, I've done it driving and completely missed my exit. So I'm still like cognizant. I'm driving, I'm looking, but my mind is somewhere else. And I've actually done this with breath work. I mean, breath work gets me into this flow state, this very deep kind of state where you're just so contented and so joyful. You're just operating from this pure place, I guess, pure place, and this deep thought. And like you're touching base with your soul in a way. So even when you're driving, you can do that because you're in such deep thought about something. But the flow state also, like if you're working, if you are attributing it to something like she got lost in her work, is when you do that, when you get lost in your work, it's typically you got to tune into what that work was that you were doing where you got lost, because it's usually a sign that that's work you're meant to do, that that's work that gives you a true sense of connectedness with who you're meant to be. So that, that joy also about listening to your heart is in that section. So you see there's some overlap because listening to your heart, you might say, oh, that's kind of like the being intuitive. And yeah, so in harmony, we talk about intuition, but in the joy one, we talk more about like heart and listening to your heart. So there you might see some parallels there. But also dreams and how you can tap into your dreams, both daydreams and night dreams. So that is in the joy section. And the one I missed was simplicity. I hopped completely over that, I think. Yeah. So simplicity is, and that's module 2. And simplicity is all about being simple. The things that are so simple that we overlook them, right? So one of the things is using our senses. Like, how often do we take our senses for granted? How often do we not see? I mean, this is a really good example of, like, we look at something a million times and then all of a sudden something, we look at it for the millionth time and we see something we never saw before. But that's because our brain is attuned to something different. And it's the whole thing of you're driving along and you've gone through your neighborhood 100 times. This is just an example of me. So I just recently got a Tesla. Never even paid attention to Teslas in my neighborhood. And so now every time I'm driving through my neighborhood, I'm like, oh, there's a Tesla. Oh my gosh, I never saw that Tesla before. So yeah, so using the senses of all the senses. And one of the senses, there's a sixth sense, and it's intuition. So that also is touched on in this module, and it's one of the exercises. It's a good exercise to follow. All right. And then the other thing is like the essentials. Like, what are the essentials? Like, we live in a society, and my ex-husband and I were such examples of materialism at its most disgusting, like always buying the latest, most expensive car, keeping up with the Joneses, and spending all the money and buying a big old house that we didn't even need. I mean, we had a daughter in college and one that was like getting, almost going to be in college. And then we went and bought this huge house. Like, that we didn't even need. And it was like crazy. Like, why do we do that? It was just like, bye, 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 bye. And it was like, strip it down. And I found myself super unhappy. We only lived in that house for 2 years. And partly it's because I was like so unhappy living there. I just felt like so out of alignment in that house. So, and one of the things that is in the Simple Abundance book, and I talked about it on another episode, is about how your home like reflects your you as a person. And you can tell, like, when you walk into your home, if how authentic you're being, because you feel connected in a home where it's truly a home versus a house. And in that case, in my case, as the example, it was a house to me. It was a house. It was never felt like a home. uh and a lot of the furniture that we had in it was purchased for that home. And so it's another interesting thing, because it was almost like it wasn't my furniture. And so when you like have a home that is filled with furniture that you've had for years, that probably feels more like your home, unless it's furniture that you were given that you don't like. So that would also be the case. Yeah, she uses an example in the book of having some ugly lamp that was a gift, and she always had it, but she never liked it. And so finally, to really be authentic to who she was, she had to get rid of the lamp. So that was a really great example. But, I think a lot of us have, especially because of the pandemic, have gone back to looking at like, what are the essentials, and wanting more of a minimalistic kind of world. And I have a real desire to get into an RV and just kind of travel and with the bare necessities. And my husband's been a little more resistant to that, but he's pretty simple. And he is somebody, like, he doesn't even have a watch. He's never had a watch. Whereas my ex-husband had like 7 watches, and I bought him a watch case one Christmas. So totally different personality. So he very much operates on a minimalistic, he still has clothes that he wore in college, but he wasn't too wild about the RV idea. But I think I have him convinced that we're going to do that at some point. So so those are the modules. Again, they are gratitude, simplicity, order, harmony, beauty, and joy. So I wanted to share that with you. It's something I've been working on for, pretty much all of August. So that's, and it takes a while to put it all together. And well, it's almost October now. So I guess it bled into September because I just finished it a couple weeks ago. But anyways, yes, it's great. I would love for people who do decide to take it to share their feedback with me, because I would love to hear what it's done for you, and if it's really helped you to step into more of a state of abundance and really raise that level that you might need to raise, which you'll find out when you take the quiz. So now it's time to get changed and get ready for my football game. So I hope you have a great weekend. Bye. Thank you so much for tuning into the Not Your Average Lives podcast. If you haven't yet, make sure to subscribe on iTunes if you have an Apple device. You can find free resources and learn what else I have going on at the moment that might interest you on my website at notyouraveragegrandma.com. You can also find me on Instagram or Facebook at Not Your Average Grandma. If you liked this episode, it would make my heart so happy if you could leave me a 5-star rating. You can also add a review to let me know what you like about this podcast, which will help spread the word about it to others who need a little midlife inspiration. As always, be you, listen to your inner voice, and focus on reigniting that lost spark so you can start living your own Not Your Average life.